just rearranged so they can go a little earlier in the agenda. So I'm going to move that we amend and approve the agenda for the January 28th, 2019 board meeting in order to update the order of the agenda to have the LHS bond construction report and approval moved to the end.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So then we move on to special recognition. And I know that we have Free State High Class 6A 2 Speaker Debate State Championships.
Yes.
Yay.
That way.
Very close by him.
Spencer Yostwolf and Max Lilich are your 2019 6A Kansas High School Activities Association two-speaker state debate champions. At the state tournament, Max and Spencer ended the preliminary rounds with a 6-0 record and were the top seed out of more than 80 teams competing heading into the single elimination bracket. Once there, they won each of the next 5 debates to claim the state championship. In addition to the 11-0 record they amassed, all 21 judges who judged them in the tournament voted for them. This means they had a perfect tournament, which is only the second time it has occurred in at least the last 25 years. Throughout the course of their season, Max and Spencer competed in 9 tournaments and 78 debates. In them, they amassed a 64-14 win-loss record. Highlights of their season beyond state included a second-place finish at the Washburn Rural season opener, which is the highest finish in Free State history. It also included an invitation to the inaugural Kansas Round Robin, reserved for the top 12 teams in Kansas as voted on by the other debate coaches. In December, Spencer and Max finished the East Kansas National Speech and Debate Association National Qualifying Tournament with a 7-1 record, which qualified them as one of only 3 teams from East Kansas to the NSCA National Tournament this June in Dallas, where they'll be joined by a second team from Free State. This is the first time in school history that 2 teams from our school have qualified in policy debate in the same year. In addition to all of these personal accomplishments, Spencer and Max have helped lead a squad which featured the only school to have all 4 two-speaker teams in elimination rounds at the state tournament, a 4th-place finish at the 6A 4-speaker tournament, the highest-placing team of sophomores at the prestigious Debate Coaches Invitational, and the 1st and 2nd-place teams and 1st-place squad at the Kansas Sunflower Novice Championships. I'm incredibly proud of Spencer and Max, and I hope that you'll join me in congratulating them on a phenomenal season.
Can I say something? Yeah, of course. As they are coming around, I just want to also publicly say how proud I am of them. When I came here, of course, you hear about the athletic state championships, but to have a state championship in debate, I think that's something to be celebrated. I hope they get rings, too. Congratulations. You want to say anything? No. Spencer and Max, you want to say anything?
It's all good.
You're about to debate it out, huh?
Yeah, we're like, we talk all the
Talked
time.
enough, right? Well, congratulations again.
Yeah. Oh, he's coming up.
Oh,
Oh, he's coming?
Okay.
Okay. I think I speak for Max as well as I when I say thank you all for like all the support that you give to the debate program at Free State. There aren't a lot of schools that are as big or have like as well-funded programs as we do, and we really appreciate the support from like all of you and everybody around the Lawrence community. That is, really integral to us being able to succeed at this level and go on to do things like go to nationals, because there aren't that many schools that have the money or the resources or the popular support to be able to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank the district for providing the funding for us to be able to go to tournaments in places like Chicago and stay overnight there. I really want to thank KT for providing all the time and effort he does with us. I know we for sure couldn't have done it without him. Our squad before him wasn't looking as good. As soon as he came, he managed to turn it around and lead to us getting the state championship. I want to thank my parents for allowing me to dedicate this time and be able to spend my entire weekends doing this. Yeah, so just thank you to everyone.
Well, thank you for representing Lawrence School District so well when you're out there debating. Good job. Next up is the report of the board president, and I actually do not have a report tonight, so we're going to move right into the report of the superintendent.
Okay, good evening. Due to the use of our two snow days, our schools will be in session on our designated April 19th snow day. And a benefit by building that snow day in, that the makeup day already into our calendar, the state forgives us for that second day that we used on last week. And I also want to publicly thank our F&O team for putting in a tremendous amount of hours, getting the sidewalks treated as much as possible. So they put in an enormous amount of hours to make sure that once our staff and students returned, that the sidewalks and parking lots were cleared. So we definitely appreciate them. They're a small team, but they've really pushed and got the work done. So thank you to our F&O team. Our Special Education Advisory Committee will be offering a parent education workshop about IEP development from 6:30 to 8:30 on February the 7th at the ESC right here. All interested parents are indeed welcome. Congratulations to all of our students and staff and community members that received a One Dream MLK Award on last week. And definitely thank you to everyone that participated in the planning. That's an enormous amount of work to put on a production like that. And so congratulations to our award winners, and thank you for our One Dream MLK Planning Committee. Also, congratulations to Billy Mills' 7th grader, Jack Tell. He is the Northeast Regional winner of the League of Kansas Municipalities contest, If I Were Mayor. That was a memo contest that he participated in and definitely won. And if he were mayor, he would improve the city's bike infrastructure. So congratulations to Jack Tell. Congratulations also to Pinckney 5th grade teacher, Megan Dolphin. She was named the Midco Ameritrust Credit Union, Minsky's Pizza, and Crown Toyota Volkswagen Teacher of the Month. Congratulations to Megan. And lastly, I do want to, as this is coming to the end of January, I know we've been trying to celebrate our board members all month. I'm not sure if you saw on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, you each had an interesting fact in your picture there. So thanks to our Rachel and Julie in our communications department. But again, I want to publicly thank you for the work that you do advocating on behalf of our students. Tomorrow, which is the 29th, is the actual day that the board voted to approve me as superintendent. And so I shared with the board, you're charged with making a lot of decisions, but I'm still hoping that that was the best decision that you made. And I definitely want to say thank you for working with me and definitely working with our community. We have a small token of our appreciation for what you do, for each one of you. And we also have Shannon. Shannon Kimball. She's on audio, so she can.
Hi, everybody.
Hey. So thank you too, Shannon. She's actually still doing the work. She's at a national school board conference, still advocating on behalf of Lawrence Public Schools. So it's just a small token to say that you are the best board members.
That's so cool. That's really cute.
And I appreciate working with each and every one of you.
All right, we'll show the people. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Very nice.
Make me miss my hair a little bit. Thank you.
That's great.
Awesome.
And I think it was our best decision that we've made so far.
For sure.
Thank
No
you.
worries there.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have patron commentary, and I believe, unless we have had somebody come in, Julie, we just have two that are here for very specific reasons, so I'm not going to read the normal statement I read when we have commentary, but I'm going to bring you up. If Kevin Stewart, you want to go ahead and come on up? Kevin is our new football coach, and he's here to introduce himself. We're glad to have you.
Hi, good evening. Just want to take a moment to introduce myself to the Board of Education and say thank you for this opportunity. I'm extremely grateful and extremely humble for this opportunity. I believe that education is an opportunity to grow, and this serves as a great opportunity for me to grow personally and in this education profession, and I am very grateful for that. I think as I go into the program, I would like to serve as an advocate for all students, not just the football players, and I plan on seeing academic growth, character growth, and athletic growth in the program. So thank you for having me tonight. I would like to kind of leave you with a little quote, or a paraphrase, I should say. A book that I most recently read was by Viktor Frankl, and it's called Man's Search for Meaning. And it was a very powerful book. And what I took away from it, one of the quotes was, most people believe that we cannot change the past. However, we can. We do it in the present. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Bring her back with you?
Oh, yeah. You
Huh? You want to introduce her? Yeah, sure. I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to help you out, brother.
I'm speaking the same thing.
I would also like to introduce Aubrey Flurkey. She's not my spouse, but very important to me, and she came with me today, and she's at KU Med right now in clinical rotation, so she's finishing up in pharmacy school. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Coach Stewart.
Next up, we have Heather Kearns with the Lawrence Public Library about reading across America.
I could do it. I'm going to pass these around. We've got
Oh, yay.
doing different age groups for the Read Across the
Man,
World
what
program.
about good?
All right.
Oh,
yes.
Inside it, you
so
have
awesome.
not only wonderful books to read.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. I tried your program.
You did?
Kathleen and I did.
So you've got Capital Federal.
Thank you.
We got a Capital Federal grant to cover 3,000
Thank you
books
so
for
much.
us. So included is the.
I was a little jealous that I didn't.
Keep in mind to no longer be frustrated while you're opening your sourdough chart as well.
Oh.
Thank you.
Tell you a little bit about the book. Oh yeah, they're all there.
That's great.
So, as you know, we do Read Across Lawrence every year. It's in February. This is my third year doing it. Some of the people behind me that do the youth and teen Read Across Lawrence have been doing it much longer. This is an opportunity for Lawrence to all read the same book. Last year we did Wonder. We chose a book that was all ages. This year we went back to our 3 different age groups. You are not bound to read the book that's designated to your age group. If you want to jump around, YA Lit is really big with adults as well, so don't be scared. You can jump in and read them all. The other thing is you can share them with each other if you finish one and somebody is in desperate need for one. That's the best thing about books. They're recyclable and you can share them with friends. We have a bunch of programs that we're doing throughout the month of February. The adult programs, you'll see in the books that I gave you, we all have a list of events. Our partners at KU help distribute books there on campus with the students. We also work with, obviously, Capital Federal, who gave us the money to get 3,000 of these books. Kingston Printing helps pay for the cost of these, so it's a huge partnership. The Friends and the Foundation of the Library also contribute and help us pull this off. So one of the probably highlights that we have coming on March 3rd is Robin Sloan, who is the author of Sourdough. Yeah. He also wrote Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore, which is another amazing read if you haven't read it. He's very funny and quirky, much like Sourdough, which is a wonderful story about a woman named Lois who is in the tech industry in San Francisco. She has absolutely no time to do anything but work and drink like a liquid diet that she calls a slurry. She only eats fast food delivery, so she gets to be super close to the guys that bring her favorite soup and bread every night because she doesn't feel like cooking. They get to know each other really well. It turns out that these guys are not in the country with a visa that lasts long enough, so they have to leave in the middle of the night. And before they do, they call her their number one customer. They swing by on their moped, drop off a starter, and her life changes forever because of it. She comes in contact with doing things with her hands in a way that isn't just on a keyboard. She meets a whole community of people who are fired up about cooking, going back to the basics, making their own food. Takes her to farmer's market and beyond, and it's funny and quirky and uplifting. So a little bit of relief from being behind your screens. You might get excited to make bread and other things with your hands eventually. So enjoy, and I will pass this off to Erica, who's our teen librarian.
Well, the teens of the community couldn't be more thrilled with the food theme this year. So we're taking the food theme and running with it. The teen book is called The Donut Fix, and it's by Jesse Janowitz. And it features Tristan and his family who have grown up their whole lives in New York City. And one day Dad says at breakfast, hey, we're moving to this little tiny rural town in upstate New York. And Tristan's life is suddenly changed forever. He gets to the town, there's nothing to do. He is walking downtown, sees the one and only General store, and it says, yes, we do have chocolate cream donuts. And he's like, yes. So he goes in, and they haven't sold the donuts in years. And the shop owner is very feisty, and he makes it his mission to get the recipe from her, plan his own business, and open his own donut stand. It's a laugh out loud book. There are many hilarious parts, one in which includes this little raccoon on the cover, but I think all ages will love it. We are doing, again, the food theme, so we're going to have a cheese tasting, because at one point he visits a local dairy farm. We're having a chocolate festival where kids can taste chocolates, and then we're also having a Shark Tank, which a bunch of local business owners like Meg from Lady Bird and Linda from Cottons is going to come help and judge. But the Shark Tank, the kids will get to make their own new gadget and then pitch it to the business owners for the hopes of winning a $50 gift card. And then we also have many more you can see in this pamphlet, but I did want to say this is a great opportunity that we are partnering with the USD 497, and the author will be coming to the library on Sunday, February 24th, which we're also going to have a local donut taste test, and the teens get a vote for the best donut in town. But then on February 25th, Jessie has agreed to stay, and we're going to host her at Central, and all the middle schools and high schools have been invited to have their kids who have read the book come and get to see her talk. So we're very excited about that. Thank you. I'm going to pass it off to Jenny Cook, who is our children's librarian.
Thank you, Erica. So our book for children this year is A Tangle of Knots. And this takes place in a slightly magical world where everyone has a talent. Well, almost everybody has a talent. Some of the people who don't have talents, they tend to be middle children, unfortunately. And our main character, Katie, her talent is that she can bake the perfect cake for anyone. There is an accident that happens that brings all of our characters to live in one building, and then we find that all of these characters, their stories intercept and come together in mysterious and wonderful ways. And throughout the book, there are recipes that Katie has that are for different characters, those perfect recipes for those perfect cakes for specific characters. So it's a very interesting way to tie the book into the food theme. So we're going to explore the book in different ways through our programs. One of the things we're going to do is learn how to decorate cakes. So that is now a full program. Kids are pretty excited about that one. We have a kids talk show that's pretty new at the library, and so Professor Wood is going to explore the world of cake, and we'll have art magic with the Spencer Museum of Art, and we're going to have a Find Your Talent showcase, which is one of the programs I'm really excited about. We're going to have people share how to do magic tricks, how to do the moonwalk, how to do some Fortnite dances. Some of the teens that Erica knows are going to help us out with that. And so kids will get to see those talents performed and then visit with people who know how to do them to help develop that talent themselves. So those are a few of the things we've got planned, and then there's lots more in the brochure.
Cool. I forgot to mention, we also are doing a recipe exchange. So in each book, you'll see a recipe card, and you can pick these up at the library too. Since it's such a communal theme around food, we thought it'd be really awesome if we could have everybody's favorite recipes that they can share with the community. We're going to have a display at the library starting February 4th where you can come in and add yours to that board. You can take pictures of the recipes that you see there, or you can just take a picture of the front and the back, put it on social media, and hashtag it with RAL Recipes. And who knows, maybe your favorite recipe will become somebody else's family tradition.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We always love it when you guys come because you bring us all these wonderful things. Okay, we'll figure it out. Yes, thank you so much. It's such a great program, and we've participated in it for several years, and we always read the book and talk about it. It's lots of fun, so I love this program. So. Okay, on to board commentary.
I just have a couple.
Okay.
So just for the last, I don't know, month or so, I had asked back toward the end of the year, I talked to Dr. Lewis about a way to get more involved in Power School. And so the district had put together a Power School team, and so they meet every week on Fridays. And so I've been going to those meetings, and so just wanted to give the board just an update on the work that they've been doing. It's been fun to go to those meetings and watch that team evolve, coming from the background that I do on a daily basis and watching them learn and grow and evolve as they tackle different issues and learn new processes and come together to respond quicker and go. And it's been fun to see them do some really good work, and so they've been fun to work with, and you know, as we've dealt with you know, the end of the semester with some grading issues and some other things, and to listen to them talk through how they found them, how they talked through what the issues were, how they solved them, how they fixed them for second semester. It was a really great experience for them to collaborate and how the system is working. So I asked Susan Fowler to work with Dr. Lewis to put together a more formal presentation about all the work that they've done and come and present to us. But I just wanted to give that little mini update on the work that they've been doing, and that I'm there listening and trying to offer help and feedback when I can. So that was good. And then had an opportunity this last weekend to go see LHS's performance of Monty Python's Spamalot, and wanted to give them congrats and call them out for that, because it was hilarious. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic,
such an enjoyable
performance. So it was good time. So I wanted to say that too.
Well, thank you for sitting on those meetings and offering up your expertise with that system and systems like it. So hopefully it's been beneficial for everybody. So I appreciate it. And yeah, I second Spamalot. It was so funny. Made me laugh out loud pretty much the whole way through it. I was very impressed. So, other board commentary?
I had the, it's not USD specifically related, but I had the opportunity, and Kelly was there also, to go to the community conversations around race, and that was their fourth and final, well, not final, but their fourth meeting. I know Dr. Lewis has been there because you were on a PowerPoint. Shout out. So the conversation ended with something that they wanted to focus on, and it was primarily criminal justice, but we know that education plays there's a connection between the two. So it'll be really great for board members and community USD 497 members to kind of come out once they put their next they have their action plan, and we're talking about building unity within a community. Oh, that rhymes. And I think that'll be a wonderful opportunity for us to go out and kind of offer some of our input and background knowledge to kind of help close that school to prison pipeline. So,
Jessica?
Shannon?
Yes. Okay. Can you hear me okay? I have a couple things I wanted to share. I wanted to thank you and Kelly for getting together as the organizational manual committee meeting on January 15th to update the board. We are working on our next draft of it, and we think we're really close to having something ready to bring to the board. We just have a little work left to do. GR and I also met with as the facility planning committee that same day to go over the presentation that we'll all see later tonight. I want to thank Kyle and all of the everyone who has worked on that. I'm just really excited to see the culmination of all the work that has been going on that project for so many months now to come to the board tonight. I had the opportunity as well last week to attend the Advocacy and Action event in Topeka through the Kansas Association of School Boards and provide information to all of our legislators about all of our Douglas County legislators about our programs at the College and Career Center. So I wanted to publicly thank Dr. Lewis and Patrick Kelly for providing me the info to share with our legislative delegation. And then thank you for letting me join you tonight by telephone. I am, or I guess by Zoom. I'm in Washington, D.C. for the National School Board Association Advocacy and Action event, and wanted to thank our staff, including Paula Murish, Denise Johnson, Dr. Lewis, and Kevin Harrell and Patrick Kelly for providing me with background information that tomorrow when we go to the Hill, I'll have an opportunity to share with Senators Roberts and Moran and our new House of Representatives member, Steve Watkins. So I think we will have a valuable opportunity to provide some input to them on the NSBA's signature issue this year, which is reauthorization, beginning the conversation about reauthorization of IDEA and also reauthorization of the Child Nutrition Program. So thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Any other commentary?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that Melissa and I just attended the first Budget and Program Evaluation Committee that Kathy Johnson is spearheading, and per usual, an hour and a half with her, and I learned a ton. So I'm really excited to be a part of that and to see where it goes as we look at evaluating programming to bring better data to the board to make decisions about the budget. Looks really exciting. So
great. Anything else? Okay. Well, then we can move on to consent agenda. Consent agenda items are those that are considered routine and are adopted by one motion unless any board member or the superintendent requests that an item be removed, and then those items are removed and voted on separately. So do I have a motion for consent?
I move the Board of Education adopt the items listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
Beeson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Fincher?
Yes.
Gordon Ross?
Yes.
Ingram?
Yes.
Jones?
yes.
Kimball?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, great. So we are then moving on to old business, which is the high school start time recommendation. And as you recall, when we talked about it last meeting, we had the recommendation from the committee, and we wanted to modify our motion a little bit to be slightly more specific about what we were going to approve. And so we worked on it, Melissa and I worked on it, and Dr. Stubblefield and Dr. Lewis also participated, and Kelly joined in. So we have before you, if you want to kind of look at it, if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, kind of the updated motion. It basically just outlines that we're basically approving the recommendation that was given to us from the committee, and with the creation of a late start time implementation committee that's going to be made up primarily of building administrators and staff, and that they will take the next 12 months to look at all of those different things that were labeled by that were earmarked by that committee and come up with a plan for implementation for the 2021 school year. I don't know if we want to have further discussion on that, or if anybody has concerns or suggestions about that recommendation.
I do have a question that I think I know the answer to, but just for clarity's sake. So the recommendation is to take 12 months, but it also says that there will be a recommendation to the board by July 31st. And just at a superficial level, that looks like in conflict. I assume what that means is the recommendation will come to the board by July 31st, but the committee will continue to work on the various issues. Is that accurate, or is that not?
Not this July 31st, right? so my understanding, I think this is part of that when you kind of design by group, right?
Yeah, so Anna mentioned to us that she needed, I mentioned at the school, at the district site council meeting, and maybe if she's here, hi Anna, mentioned that in order for the high school administrators to implement a later start time, that they really have to have a plan in place in the fall to make those action steps. So I think the idea was that you would bring plans to us for us to make a decision. You want to talk?
Correct. So our hope is to, by July 31st, to bring options so
2019.
that,
July 31st, 2019.
Yeah.
2019, to say, here's what it would cost to do option A, option B, option C, whatever the options. Here are the parameters, to narrow it down to one, so that by the time for the 2021 school year, when they get ready for enrollment in January, we've worked out all of the kinks, busing, activities, and that kind of thing. So July 31st, when I was sharing it, was like a checkpoint so that we could stay on target, because if we come back, say in December of 2019, and there are questions or concerns, we don't have any time if we're going to actually implement it in 2021. If we're not going to actually implement it in 2021, like if everything is great. So we were just trying to buy some time to provide an update. So there may be.
So it's not really the implementation plan that you're going to present on July 31st. It's more recommendations.
Yes.
Yeah. So the options. So you would have like maybe what does it look? What does it cost the district to do an 8:30 time? What does it cost to do an 8:45? What does it cost the district to do a 9? What are the considerations for busing, for example, in those spaces? And then you would be able to make a more informed decision about which direction they could take. It also gives us a full year to inform the community and our staff that this is where we're going, and they can iron out any issues they might see along the way. But if we don't have some timelines along the way that we've identified, it becomes administratively cumbersome, I think.
It also gives the building administrators an opportunity to survey students and teachers to see, if, for example, it were to move back to 9 o'clock, 0 hour would then start at 8 o'clock. If there are more students who decide I'm going to take 0 hour because it's later, how do we balance the schedule and figure out staffing? And it gives us a little more time to work through those kinks versus if we brought all of that in December and then we're trying to enroll students in January, it could be tough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would just say that we modify that wording a little bit then to make it more clear what that actually is.
Sure. Let's see.
So it sounds like we are actually studying the staggered start time that the committee suggested, from what you're saying about students would have still the option if they wanted to come an hour earlier to get the day over earlier.
And I'm operating under the assumption that 0 hour would still be an option for students because we wouldn't take away that option that's already there. So that's the assumption that I was operating under. And knowing now that 0 hour is at 7, and some students may not choose to do it because it's really early, 8 o'clock for some students may be more attractive. So just kind of foreplan that there may be more students who decide to enroll in 8 o'clock, and you naturally may end up with a staggered start, and then you may not. Those are the things we're trying to figure out, so we can then talk to staff about if we have more students who want to enroll in 0 hour, particularly at Lawrence High, where they offer fewer now than Free State. We're going to have to make some adjustments and work with staff to see who wants to be on what courses we need to offer, and if there is an impact in staffing in general because you need to offer more of certain course or something like that. So those are the kind of things we would have to work out. But during the committee meeting, we never talked about 0 hour not being an option. So if you push it back, 0 hour would just be the hour before, like it is now.
Just wanted to clarify.
So I think we could amend it. Can I make a suggestion?
In a second, because I think Gary wants to say a few words on it too.
Sure.
So I'll allow
Yeah, I just wanted to give a perspective of a student that's been enrolled in a 0 hour for the past 5 years. So my day starts at 5:30 a.m. every morning for me to wake up and to get like energized before I arrive at school at roughly like 6:55. Then throw in having to pick up 2 other kids that are also enrolled in student council with me. I'm leaving the house at 6:30 every morning and getting to the school before I'd say like half my teachers. So I definitely think that with the consideration of 0 hour still being involved, moving back would be a good thing to look at, because in prior discussions I've heard that 0 hour would possibly just be entirely eliminated. But myself, I would not have been able to take the course load that I have been able to take if I didn't have the flexibility of having an extra 8th class. Mm-hmm. So I think keeping that as a consideration should be a big key going forward.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify, in case that is a misconception out there, there was never any conversation about eliminating 0 hour. Mm-hmm. We just really talked about shifting the start time back.
So I think part of it, and actually I really appreciate that feedback, because it points to some of the issues we have heard or that students have raised or teachers have raised. So it would give you time to look at like how each one of those plans might impact the issues that we identified through, or that was identified through the committee. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing, I would make a suggestion, and I'm sure this is going to be the case, but you know, I think the last committee kind of got lost in lots of options. I think it's really important to keep the focus on a plan that gets kids the opportunity for more sleep, because that's really what this is about. I don't know who's going to be on the committee, and I know I'm sure she's overworked, but if Denise Johnson is willing, I think she would be terrific, since what she does is health, and this is really fundamentally a health issue. Well, it's many things, but health is part of it.
Kelly, you had a recommendation for wordsmithing.
Yeah, so on the fly, the committee, so the line that starts, the committee will present an implementation plan for the 2021 school year, that line.
Yep.
The suggestion would be the committee will present implementation plan options for the 2021 school year to the school board, to the Board of Education by July 31st, 2019.
That's fine with me.
Well, I had a couple things to say before the vote. I wanted to first thank all the members of the high school start time advisory committee. A lot of people, all the participants were teachers who, during that time, we were at a stalemate, and they were being only working the contract, but they still gave their time, and they still came to every meeting and gave us great input. So I really want to thank the teachers and the principals that came and helped with that. I just wanted to share. I've just received outpouring of concerns from parents and regarding late start. A lot of it, and I know this is a frustration for everything that we do, was prefaced with, this is the first thing I've heard about it, and I know it's really hard to get our message out, but that sometimes it's difficult for families to keep up with what's going on. I've kind of, a lot of the comments I've received echoed the concerns that the committee heard as well, which I thought was kind of interesting, because the committee to study the start time really was, it really was kind of split in opinion. So I think it was kind of interesting that the comments mirrored a lot of the comments made in the committee. Some of them had to do with challenges for their family, challenges for commuters, which we have a lot of people who work out of town, and difficulty getting their kids where they need to be, especially if they're within busing or inside busing boundaries, and the parents are leaving town. Others had to do with later evenings. I've heard from staff regarding their evenings getting later, especially activity sponsors. And I should put my glasses on for these notes. And so other things like sports, sibling schedules, jobs, and family evening time being cut short, which I think was mentioned by one of the community members that came and spoke to us yesterday. I just want to make sure that these comments and these concerns are thought about. And again, I think like a lot of times our community is, there is a split opinion about doing this, and I affirm I'm not challenging the science by any means. I have heard from comments about, well, we're not even changing the schedule enough to make a difference. I don't know if that is, scientifically accurate or not, but just want to acknowledge these feelings that are out there that I've received, and that I think it's also very important to honor the committee that studied this for months, and make sure that we are looking at some sort of staggered start for people, or for students or teachers that want to remain in the schedule that they, similar schedule that they have now. I did hear from a lot of people who actually have kids that start early so they can get out early for jobs and for sports and for homework and for et cetera. So I think a flexible option would be great. Obviously, it needs to fiscally work for us, but I just want to make sure that we are honoring the work that the committee did, because I think there were some feelings after last meeting that I just wanted to touch on. So with that, that's kind of what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jill.
Any other comments before we go ahead and make the motion? Okay, Kelly, you want to go ahead and make it since you've made the amendment?
Let's see if I remember how I just. I move the Board of Education approve the creation of the Late Start Time Implementation Committee made up of building and administrative staff. The committee will meet over the next 12 months to develop a plan to implement later high school start times that were presented by the High School Advisory Committee. The committee will present implementation plan options for the 2021 school year to the Board of Education on July 31st, 2019. The committee will work with the Director of Communication to inform stakeholders of the rationale and benefits of this change.
Second.
Fincher,
Yes.
Gordon Ross,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Beeson,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. All right, next up we have a presentation from the strategic planning firm to give us a little bit of more information about the work we're about to undertake. So please, I'm sorry, we're looking at board docs and I'm having trouble finding your name. So welcome, please introduce yourself.
Get this. Good evening. My name is Martha Greenway, and I am delighted to be here this evening. I am representing our strategy firm, Greenway Strategy Group, and I would just like to briefly walk through with the board the approach that we propose to take to support a strategic planning process with the school district. All right, I have to do this differently. There we go. So just a little background about our firm. We provide analysis and strategic guidance specifically for nonprofit and education organizations. And our mission is to improve outcomes for children, families, and learners of all ages. This is some of the expertise that we are able to provide. So in this particular case, we'll be focusing primarily on our strategy design, implementation, and monitoring work. I wanted to just highlight a few things that are unique about our firm in this work, and I'll start on the lower left-hand side. We bring a tremendous amount of research and analytical expertise, and we do want to commend the district for the extensive amount of information that they have available for us to work with, including student achievement data, extensive community input information. We will be gathering that information, reviewing it, and synthesizing it. If there's a need to look at additional information, including information on the performance of comparable school districts, that is information that our staff are familiar with and will be able to gather and also bring to the table. However, in addition to basing a strategic plan in a solid understanding of current performance as indicated by data, it's also very, very important that there are collaborative partnerships with all stakeholders in the community in order to understand their perspectives and their desires for the school districts. So we have extensive experience as well with collaborative relationships and partnerships that build trust and buy-in, facilitating large community forums, focus groups, input surveys, a variety of tools and resources that we can use to be sure that all stakeholders are engaged in the process. We also bring strong coaching and facilitation skills, and one of the things that we will do through this process is to support the school district to design and implement the plan using tools and resources that we have developed. But in our coaching and facilitation work, we will build the capacity of the school district to monitor the process and continue the process over the next several years using the resources that we will support. Additionally, we have a variety of talent on our team that we will be deploying to support the school district based on your needs. So for example, in a minute, I'll go over the people that will be on our primary team that will be supporting the district. But in addition to these people, we have individuals who have expertise in curriculum and instruction design, strategies to address achievement gaps, talent management, including teacher retention and recruitment, leadership development, business process improvement that we can bring in to support the district on an as-needed basis, depending on what emerged from the strategic planning process. And then finally, everybody that works on our team has also worked internally in organizations to manage strategy implementation and really understands the work that has to be done to align organizations toward a strategic plan. So we're not bringing advice or recommendations out of a book that we read somewhere, but we've all had practical experience, and many of us have had experiences with school districts specifically. And so we deploy all of this in order to bring measurable growth to your school district aligned with your mission. Here are some examples of other organizations that we have worked with recently. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over these since we did detail a lot of this work in our proposal. We are supporting the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction in implementing a strategic plan, and we're also working with all of the state organizations across North Dakota who touch on education to develop a common vision. And we have had extensive community engagement. We've done regional forums across the state. We've listened to teachers. We've done surveys where people can provide input. So it's been a very inclusive process. We also worked with Pittsburgh Public Schools to develop a strategic plan, the Palm Beach School District in Florida, which is the 10th largest school district in the United States. We recently wrapped up a project in St. Paul Public Schools. We've also done quite a bit of work on college access and completion, as well as looking at students gaining other credentials beyond high school. Did an extensive project for the Board of Regents in Georgia, where we talked with school counselors, we talked with students, we talked with parents, we engaged community providers across the state in understanding how the resources the state was providing for college access were being received. We're currently working with Georgia Tech to support a strategic plan, working with the College of Engineering, which is actually the largest college of engineering in the United States. And then the two organizations at the bottom, Achieve Atlanta and Achieve Palm Beach County, are both community-based organizations that specifically work to help low-income and first-generation high school students attain a post-secondary credential. And then finally, with the Wallace Foundation, we supported an effort around leadership development and support of the principal pipeline by working with 6 districts from across the United States and specifically supporting 10 principals from each of those districts in a collaborative learning community where they could share their experiences and create tools and resources for other school districts. We've also worked with a variety of community nonprofit organizations that provide wraparound and support services to students in schools. So this is the team that will be supporting you on site the most frequently. In addition to, as I mentioned, we can bring other resources in based on the needs of the district. So just a little bit about me. I've been doing strategy and performance improvement work for about 30 years. About half of that was in public education, and the other half was in the nonprofit sector, working with United Way nationally and in 2 local communities. I've also worked as a program evaluator with the Ohio Department of Mental Health, and very early in my career worked for a county Department of Family and Children's Services organization, and also worked in a youth development center for adjudicated youth. So both of those experiences really gave me a fundamental commitment to improving conditions for families and children. And my move into education was really deliberately because I believe that an education is the best means of leveling the playing field for children in our state, in our world. So Margaret Brackett will also be joining the team. Margaret brings a lot of experience with data analysis and utilization, but is also very adept at community engagement through focus groups, community forums, and those types of techniques. She is currently working in Georgia to evaluate a National Science Foundation grant around increasing access to computer science classes among K through 12 students. She worked within a school district managing research and evaluation. She participated in something called the Harvard Strategic Data Project, which is a Gates-funded initiative at Harvard to improve the ability of school district staff to utilize data for improvement. She was one of the very first people across the country who worked on school report cards way back in the early 1980s, and she started her career in Washington, D.C. at the Institute for Higher Education Policy. And then lastly, but not least, Mirella Herrera will be supporting the school district as well. She has some very specific expertise around college readiness and educational equity for students. She previously worked with a group called the Education Trust, which is in Washington, D.C., and advocates for policies to increase access and achievement of underrepresented students. You can see some of her previous roles with the Aspen Institute. She's worked with the U.S. Department of Education and also supported a U.S. representative and Texas senator as her education policy advisor. So I believe with the 3 of us on site, we'll be able to provide the district the support that you all need to engage your stakeholders and then also to bring that information back and craft a meaningful strategic plan. So very quickly, we'll be approaching the project in 3 phases. Our first phase, which we've actually already gotten a bit of a jump start on, is the analysis phase. We've received already a great deal of information from the district, the listen and learn session input from a variety of surveys that you've done. We're working with district staff to get student achievement data. So all of that information will be synthesized into a presentation that we will then work with stakeholders to review. And from that, we will go through a process, if you will, to kind of check in on the district vision and mission. Often we find with school districts the vision and mission are pretty much directionally correct, so we don't start with a blank slate and redesign that, but we do want to make sure that it's aligned and still relevant. We will then work to identify a set of priority student outcomes, and I'll say a little bit more about what those mean in a moment. And also the strategic themes or the areas within the district where enhanced approaches are most needed. And then from that, we will work with the district to define a set of strategic initiatives that will lay out the work to be implemented over the next 3 to 5 years. For each initiative that we'll be launching first, we will work with the district to create a very, very detailed action plan that will include a budget, a work plan, assignment of responsibilities for implementation, and also lay out specifically how stakeholders that will be affected by the strategic initiative will be involved throughout its implementation. And then lastly, we have tools for monitoring review so that the superintendent and leadership team will be regularly reviewing the plan, as well as the board. And that will include metrics on how the performance on the student outcomes are moving forward, as well as implementation information as to how the strategic initiatives are unfolding in their implementation. So very quickly, these are just some of the definitions and terminology that we use. As I have said to the leadership team and superintendent, we are not dogmatic about terminology. So if your community feels that a different word works better than priority student outcomes, we are happy to revise that. But the concepts we do believe are important. And so when we talk about orienting a strategic plan toward priority student outcomes, we are talking about specific measurable results to achieve for student conditions, knowledge, and behavior. And that's what the strategic plan needs to be directed toward. And these will be identified again through the combination of looking at data on the past district performance, considering all of the stakeholder feedback that you've already received, and then going through iterative sessions where we hear from the community about how they think about various drafts of this that would be presented. The strategic themes then represent the work to be done by the district in order to improve the outcomes for students. And within each strategic theme, there'll be an objective for what needs to be improved, and then also the specific strategic initiatives, which are the projects or the work that the district will be about, and then finally, the action plans. So I know this is very difficult to read, but this is an example from Palm Beach of their strategic plan, and one can see that they have identified 4 long-term student outcomes: increasing reading on grade level by 3rd grade, ensuring high school readiness, increasing the high school graduation rate, and fostering postgraduate success. For each of these, they have defined specific indicators of performance. They worked with their board after looking at current baseline data to set a 5-year target. So the goals that you see here are the goals that the board has set for performance through this strategic plan. And then they have 4 strategic themes, which are the areas where they're focusing the work of the district as they implement the strategic plan. Effective and relevant instruction to meet the needs of all students, positive and supportive school climate, talent development, and a high-performance culture. This is another example from Pittsburgh, and I just want to point out here how each district has designed this in a way that works best for them and their community in terms of the flow, the way that it's organized, even some of the terminology. In St. Paul, they weren't crazy about the phrase strategic theme, so they called those areas of focus, and that's how they crafted it in their strategic plan. So in Pittsburgh, they have increased proficiency and literacy for all students. One of the things that happened when we looked at the data in Palm Beach is that they had a significant gap in 3rd grade literacy. Despite being one of the most wealthy counties in the United States, their performance on 3rd grade literacy was below their state average. So they decided they really needed to hone in and focus on that, whereas in Pittsburgh, they had literacy deficiencies pretty much across the board. Ensure all students are equipped with skills to succeed in college, career, and math. Increase proficiency, and life. Increase proficiency in math for all students. And then in Pittsburgh, although not so much in Palm Beach, they identified that they had tremendous issues around racial disparity, specifically in the achievement levels of African American students, where even when we looked at the disaggregation of that data by income, African American students, regardless of their income level, were performing significantly lower than other students in the district. And so they chose to call that out as one of the outcomes that they wanted to address specifically. So I won't read through the rest of this, but you can see how the strategic themes flow into objectives, then flow into strategic initiatives. And what this illustrates well is that we will work with you to phase those initiatives in over a period of 3 years so that you're not trying to launch them all at once, but you're thinking carefully about which ones perhaps have the most urgency, which ones need to precede others, so that there is a planful and realistic cadence to actually implement this meaningful work. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we do use a research framework that supports our strategy development. Richard Rummelt studied a number of organizations that were able to bring about transformative change and identified 3 what he calls kernels of a good strategy. And the first one corresponds to our analysis phase, which is what we call this diagnosis, which is essentially simplifying the often overwhelming complexity of reality by identifying certain aspects of the situation as being the critical ones. So by looking at your data and engaging your community, really making some choices about what student results this particular strategic plan is going to emphasize. Because you can't work on a myriad of 30 or 40 things at one time. You've got to make some choices about these are the most critical areas we need to improve for our students. And then in the strategy development phase, establishing a guiding policy, which is essentially saying, and here's what we think we can do about it, which is what the strategic themes really lay out. Here are the areas of district work that we think we can leverage and enhance in order to affect those student outcomes. And then finally, coherent actions. So really being clear and transparent about here is the work that's going to need to happen, here's when it has to happen, here's the resources we're going to allocate, and then having an open and transparent process where that is reported regularly to the board and shared with the community overall. And so this is our time frame, or our timeline, excuse me. So we would be ready to engage immediately after board approval. As I mentioned, we've already started gathering some data. When we get to phase 2, where we are defining the priority student outcomes and strategic themes, we would bring those as a draft first to the board so that the board can review that and provide feedback before it goes out for community feedback. We would then have an extensive stakeholder input period around that draft. This can be a variety of things based on the different districts' preferences. We can do large community forums, we can do small focus groups, we can do very targeted conversations, but to ensure that all stakeholders, including parents, business and community members, students, teachers, administrators, everyone has an opportunity to understand the genesis of the draft student outcomes and strategic themes and provide their feedback. We would then come back to the board and share that feedback with you. And based on what we've heard from the community and the board's direction, make adjustments to it. At that point then, we will train teams who will work on each of those strategic themes to define what the strategic initiatives need to be. And so again, this is an iterative process where they develop a draft set of strategic initiatives. We go out and get input from stakeholders about whether or not these are indeed the right things, and also get feedback from stakeholders about what's required to implement them effectively. And then we move into the action planning phase, which is when a very detailed action plan would be developed for all the strategic initiatives that have been approved as part of the plan. And then finally, the monitoring process, as I mentioned, ensures that the board is regularly hearing reports from the district leadership about how the implementation is going and providing guidance about mid-course corrections, because we know everything's not going to go as planned. So we're going to run into issues. We may run into issues around resource requirements. We may run into issues around stakeholder acceptance. So we need to have constant dialogue about how things are going and have that opportunity for continuous improvement, but also to ensure that there's accountability and transparency to the community around the progress and implementation of the plan. And so that is my last slide, and I am happy to take any questions that the board has at this point.
Do you have a guess on individually and overall what those 3 phases would take timeline-wise?
Yes, and actually we had a good conversation with the district leadership today to try to get that laid out. And so right now what we're thinking is that the work around the analysis and the input to develop a set of draft priority student outcomes and strategic themes would take place in February. and possibly we could bring you a draft to review and refine at your February 25th meeting. The stakeholder input would then occur from February 25th to about March 20th, and that we could bring you back the stakeholder feedback to make any refinements at your March 25th meeting. And that would then give us April to work on developing the strategic initiatives, and then May and June to develop the strategic initiative implementation plans for those that would be launched first, as well as a communication plan, developing the performance metrics on the outcome measures, and the board setting targets for future achievement, and establishing that monitoring process. So broad swath, that's what we're looking at right now.
Okay. And then, so with your work, then once the developing monitoring process, once that's done, and the action and the strategic plan is done and then implemented, and then it's rolling and the monitoring process is done, are you still there for support into the future, or is your work then done at that point?
That's completely up to the district.
Okay.
The contract that we have ends June 30th. That's the end of your fiscal year. In some cases, organizations like us to continue to provide some support and to ensure that the monitoring and review process gets off the ground. But as I said, anywhere you see train teams or work with teams, we're providing templates, blueprints. We're training people to lead those processes so that specifically with the initiatives and the action planning, you will have all those tools in-house and people who've been trained to implement that. So the next year when you roll out another set, all of that will be available to you. But we can be available certainly to provide ongoing assistance as needed.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I just have a comment. I think this is a really great plan. I was just sitting here reflecting that when I was first elected to the board in 2011, there was a great deal of enthusiasm for developing a long-term plan. So needless to say, that didn't get done. The sort of issues came up and that kind of got in the way. So this is really exciting that we're soon we're going to approve this, and that even though we're long overdue, it's good that we're going to get a great start on this and what looks like a much more comprehensive plan than I could ever have envisioned. So I think this looks great.
Anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, I'm just super excited to get started. I told the team today, it's almost embarrassing to keep saying once we get the strategic plan, but we're moving to the point where we're communicating back with our community members, parents, and stakeholders who we went out to during a listening and learning session. We haven't forgot about you. We're coming for you again. So we'll need your continued engagement, your continued support as we map out now this process. This is what we heard, and the community came out and said, this is what's important to us. And now, as I mentioned in our listening and learning tours, we'll depend on you again to map out how we get there, and then hold us accountable to that. And so I think I definitely like the piece in there that's transparent and engaging in terms of that implementation and follow through. And so any element of the strategic plan, we should go in any building and see evidence of. This is not a big, thick 3-ring binder full of things that probably never get done, but it's very simple. I've always said less is more, and this definitely speaks to what we want to do in terms of just focusing on what we know works here in this district. And definitely want to thank Martha. I know she has a flight to catch. Going back to Georgia, I think they're expecting 1 inch of snow, so this entire state is probably going to shut down.
Everything's closed.
Everything's closed. So go get your bread and milk before you go back home. But thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to working with you.
Yeah. And thank Paula Murs, too, who's been instrumental in really working with Martha in this whole process.
Yeah, thank you, Paula.
So I can make the motion if people are ready.
That'd be great.
Move the Board of Education approve a contract between Lawrence Public Schools and Greenway Strategy Group for strategic planning services at a cost of $69,200, including travel expenses, The contract is to be paid from the Board of Education budget and contingency reserve fund if needed.
Second.
Gordon Ross,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Beeson,
Yes.
Johnson, Fincher. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, so next up, we are going to bring Avid and have our Avid update. So welcome to all of our students.
You pass on a tissue, please. Probably a couple.
I know.
Thank you.
I brought a gaggle with me, a gaggle of people. Good evening. Leah Wisdom, Director of Equity, Instruction, and Student Services, excited to be here with you tonight to talk about AVID. I have two colleagues. Oh, Miss Becker. Tammy Becker's over there, and Carissa Miles. Tammy's principal at Hillcrest Elementary, and Carissa is teacher and AVID coordinator at West Middle School. So you'll hear from them, and then you see some students here that are also going to talk with you. So we're going to kind of move through the things that you've heard before a little bit faster. I want to get to the meat of the presentation, which is impact. So we have data to share with you, similar to what we shared with you last year. And then, of course, student impact. And there's a couple videos in here to also give you a flavor of what the AVID elective looks like. So actually, Tammy Becker's going to touch on this a little later, but wanted to remind you how connected AVID is to our relevance and relationship goals, in addition to what we're doing with KISA, and when we're thinking about our multi-tiered system of support, which is meeting the needs of all students. And when we think about, we want to really differentiate, we've got AVID for school-wide, so teachers that are receiving professional learning to give them strategies to help students access the rigorous content in their classrooms. And then we also have the AVID elective, which isn't for everyone, it's just for some. It is, and we're going to talk about kind of who some of those kids are. And we talk about this every year. I always read the mission. It's really near and dear to me. The AVID's mission is to close the achievement gap by preparing all students for college readiness and success in a global society. And we know that not all students plan to attend college, but this is that idea that we want all of our students to have the option. So let's talk just about the AVID Schoolwide and the AVID elective. AVID Schoolwide is a college readiness system. It does give access and give skill sets to all students to allow that to be an option. There's a rigorous approach to the curriculum. AVID collects and utilizes evidence-based strategies. It's nothing, golden. It's stuff we've all heard of, but we know that we know they're proven and there's research behind them. And then it provides really good quality professional development for our staff who are able to attend. And when we're talking about the AVID elective, there's sort of an AVID elective student profile. These are students that want to go to college, they have determination, and they want to be in a class that will support them with the rigorous content and provide the skills to allow them to be successful as they move on. You see this a lot in presentations where I say they may be students who are also the first to attend college, are historically underserved in four-year universities, or they might be low SES, but those are just some criteria. We do not all of our students fall into that. So I think that's really important to differentiate. And then the intent of the AVID elective, and you're going to see a little snippet of it in a minute, but it is to accelerate academic and social skills, to provide the same support that all of our students are getting, but in a more intense way. These students are visiting colleges regularly. They're having guest speakers come talk to them. They're engaging in service activities, the kinds of things that will help them get the scholarships that they're looking for. And then they're doing tutorials quite often, 2 times a week, and that's what you're going to see. So to wrap and sum that up, I want to talk about myths and challenges. There is a myth that the AVID elective students are always the first in their family to attend college, and I just addressed that a little. AVID elective students may be the first in their family to attend college, but it is not a criteria. AVID students are low achieving. That's not true. Our AVID students sometimes have not had the opportunity to perform to their highest potential, maybe as a result of their own barriers that are then brought out as they get in the AVID elective, or as a result of systemic barriers that are preventing that highest potential. There is also a myth that AVID is only about that elective class. And as I mentioned, AVID really is school-wide. The elective class is a huge component. It's really where we started, but we've tried to get that training going so that all of our staff are using strategies so all of our students are benefiting. And another and final myth that I put up here is that the AVID teacher takes care of the AVID elective students, right? We're gonna do all this, but that's not true. Our AVID elective students are everyone's students. So as those students are accessing all their content and core classes, as educators, we're still stepping in and doing all those pieces. So that brings us to our two first student speakers. Do you want to introduce them?
I do. I want to introduce our two student speakers because they're near and dear to my heart. They're some of my AVID babies. So at West, at West, they were my 8th grade students is when they started with AVID. And so we have Tamoa here and Elias, and they are still in AVID. They're juniors now, and they're going to come up and share a little bit with you.
So like she said, we started in 8th grade, and one thing I remember specifically was I wasn't excited to start AVID because I didn't know what to expect. But when I went in, I was very happy that I did it because I didn't realize what notes were at all until I started AVID. All I knew is that I was supposed to write it down, didn't know what I was supposed to go back and look at it, didn't know I was supposed to highlight. Like it taught me great things about note-taking and skills that I needed for school and high school, and especially for later in college. And also the main thing that I got from AVID was meeting my best friend Tamoa, and he became my best friend in AVID. We didn't like each other before AVID at all. And we became really best friends, and he's still my best friend to this day, and he'll probably be my best friend for the rest of my life. So I think AVID made me a better student and a better person overall for me.
I can try, but organization to me is note-taking to Elias, because a big part of AVID for me is general organization and just preparedness, because before I started AVID, I was all over the place, just papers crammed into my bag, nothing, not even a binder or anything, just general organization. And being a student athlete, as Elias also is, I'm sure he feels the same way, but just balancing school life and athletics, organization really helps. And one thing that AVID students kind of have a step ahead of just general students is college readiness, because we go on college visits, we know kind of how the day is for a college student and just the steps needed to take to get into college. Like some juniors in our classes don't even know what the FAFSA is, so just having the knowledge is amazing. So.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. So we have two other speakers. They're going to come up here in a minute, but we're going to do a couple things in between. If you noticed that one right there, actually I call both these boys my sons because they're at my house all the time, but the one on the left there is my son. So anyway, so it's fun to hear him. But I want to talk a little bit about the structure of the AVID elective course to give you that sense. So what these gentlemen were talking about are the experiences that they've had in AVID over the years. And these coordinators actually are in the process of spending a lot of time to vertically align what students are experiencing year to year in AVID. Not that they wouldn't go on the same college visit, because it's very different for an 8th grader than it is for a junior to go see UMKC or Washburn or wherever it is that they go. But so yeah, they're having all these experiences, and you can kind of see that. The writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading strategies are the types of things that our students are learning skills to really be able to handle high-level content, the kinds of things that you would experience at the collegiate level. All of our students are taking AP and honors classes, except for middle, so that starts at high school. And the reason why I think they spoke to the friendship that they have is, as you may recall, in high school, once they start as 9th graders, they stay with the same class and the same teacher. So they're having that real, that experience of almost a school within a school kind of thing, right? They develop those relationships. Tutorials are one of the hugest parts of the AVID elective. As 8th graders, 7th and 8th graders, they are learning how to do tutorials. And then they get into 9th, 10th, 11th, by 12th grade, they're actually they're doing their own tutorials. They're creating their own study groups. So they've learned this structure over the course of many years. But by the time they're seniors, we kind of start pulling back and saying, hey, you know that notebook we've been making you carry? You can carry that however you want to carry it. Organize it how you want it. Or, you know, those tutorials we've been doing, you're going to now develop your own study groups. So that's that gradual release process. But we wanted you to see what a tutorial looks like. It's a little over a 2-minute video, but it'll give you a sense. This is 8th grade at West. This is 7th grade at West. Ooh, it's 7th? Okay.
It is. It's okay.
I put 8th in the video. My apologies.
A one-step equation, which comes from my math class. My initial question was, how do you do a one-step equation? What I know about my question is you have to do one side and then you have to do the other side. So say we did like 8
Through the AVID tutorial process, I've seen students come back and ask for more information from me, and I can tell that they have a better understanding of the concepts that I'm teaching in class.
How would you know? I mean, what operation do you have to do when you're doing a one-step equation? I don't really know for sure. Guess, educated guess. Well, I'm pretty sure you may have to do the opposite, but I don't know if I'm supposed to do the opposite on this side also.
So do you subtract it from the 8 or the 2?
I think the 2.
Are you sure?
No, not really. Wait, I think you have to do the 8. Yeah, the 8, right? Okay. So I do this. And I don't know if I'm supposed to multiply the 2 or divide the 2, for sure.
Well, what did you do for the first part of the problem?
I did the opposite, so I would divide. Okay. Okay, that would get me. Okay. That makes sense. I have to rewrite the problem and do it on this side. Which would mean 2x equals 12, and then divide 2x by 2, and so then x is left, and 6 is the answer.
So usually whenever I have a question in class, and if it's longer than just a right there answer, I usually don't have time to ask it because it'll take a while, and I can end up wasting time. So whenever I go to AVID and then do the tutorial request form, it's pretty easy to
The opposite. You have to do it on the other side, on both sides.
So that gives you a flavor of a tutorial. We tried to capture that inquiry process. So actually, Carissa was standing nearby as they were doing this tutorial. We've not had tutors. We typically have tutors in every AVID classroom. We've really struggled this year, especially at middle school. So I know Barb would agree. She's our coordinator at Southwest. So that's been a frustration, but you're seeing students navigate that inquiry process without really that adult support. They did a great job. So they're taking that process and sort of adding on to it and enhancing it over the years and making it their own, so that as they go into college, they've internalized, how do I handle a difficult problem? How do I create the space that I need to get through something that I don't understand? So that's the intent of a tutorial.
Yeah, we have 2 more student speakers. One is from, well, they're both from Southwest. One's a 7th grader, one's an 8th grader. We have Caitlin in January. Would you guys
Hi, my name is Caitlin Sand, and I'm an 8th grader in the AVID program at Southwest Middle School.
And my name is January Jackson. I'm a 7th grader in the AVID program at Southwest Middle School. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. And true to its name, we learned right away that in order to advance, we must be determined. In our classroom, Mrs. Nitz has a bulletin board with a mirror right in the middle of it. The text reads, "Meet the person responsible for your learning."
When I was a 7th grader, I could sign up for AVID as one of my electives. I asked my parents about it, and they said that I didn't need it. At the time, they thought AVID was for the kids who needed help to go to college. In the fall, I adjusted my schedule with Miss Beats, and she recommended AVID, so I decided to try it. Let me share with you that AVID has been one of the most beneficial academic tools for me. Through AVID, I have learned to skillfully collaborate with a team or a partner. It is teaching me how to study better and develop effective note-taking skills. AVID is setting the foundation for a successful high school and collegiate career.
When I was first introduced to AVID in 6th grade, I knew AVID would be good for me and open me up to many opportunities, but I was just a bit unmotivated because I thought I would have to do extra work. Then, when I started AVID, I realized that in order to get where I wanted to go, I would have to work hard to earn those opportunities. AVID is creating the pathway for me to navigate through those difficult academic times. AVID is a fun and helpful learning elective that has done wonders for my organizational skills and confidence to ask questions and be a leader. I've made many friends in AVID, many who were not in my friend circle in the past, and that has enriched my school year. We do many collaborative activities, so we have built a strong trust and known as the AVID family. Mrs. Nitz has another saying in her classroom: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
One of the best opportunities that I have experienced through AVID was on Veterans Day. A few AVID students were invited to Hy-Vee to meet and serve coffee to veterans. It was such an amazing experience because the veterans had such heartfelt stories they wanted to share. All I had to do was listen. I wish you could see the happiness in their eyes as they shared their stories. Before AVID, I would have felt too shy to meet and talk about life with these giving people. But you see, in AVID we work on presenting skills and working through our insecurities. AVID presented me with the opportunity to connect with another generation and just for a while, see the world through someone else's experiences.
Certainly, the AVID curriculum is essential to growing academically. One area that we explicitly study is effective note-taking. We are exposed to a variety of note-taking options, knowing that one size does not fit all. Notes are the living record of our learning. The AVID focused note-taking skill includes a 5-step process, which ends with step 5, applying our learning, using and revisiting our notes with a purpose. One way we demonstrate our learning is through an activity called silent conversation. Based on the material we have taken notes over, we then engage in a completely written, nonverbal conversation with a partner over the text. It really forces us to concisely put into words our position on a topic and the time to consider someone else's position before responding.
I am an officially licensed binder doctor. I bet you wonder what that is. Well, we're not happy keeping the AVID organized binder secrets to ourselves. So we have a team of AVID binder professionals to go into advisory classes each Monday and work with students who need a medical binder checkup. We help organize and arrange their binder while teaching them about the necessary elements needed for keeping their notebook in order. We like to think of it as triaging students who have been recommended by their advisory teacher. It goes along with our belief in giving back and volunteering in our community. Each semester, we volunteer at least 10 hours as part of our AVID commitment. Last semester, the AVID students volunteered over 397 hours. This semester, we're going for 500.
Caitlin and my challenge tonight was to tell you about the awesomeness of AVID in 2 to 3 minutes. We barely scratched the surface, and we've most likely gone over our time limit. So, we would like to invite the Board of Education to come visit our AVID classroom anytime and see for yourselves the amazing program and students who are AVID.
We might even feed you lunch. Thank you for your time.
All right. Did you see their shirts too?
Yeah.
And I can't let them walk away without acknowledging they're actually both here with families in the back. They were videotaping if you saw them. And their teacher and coordinator at Southwest Barb Knits, who just took that over in the fall and is like rocking it. I could not be, yeah. She really is. And what these students are experiencing is pretty special as a result of the facilitation of learning that she's doing in that class. So I could not let you walk away without you hearing that. It's pretty exciting. So want to move on to remind you of our timeline. We started AVID at high school in 2012. I'm not going to go through the whole timeline. We just add to this every year. I do the report. So what's new for 2018 is that we did add we added AVID at 7th grade. So we talked about that last year. We have a committee that was kind of exploring it, and we went for it. And it's been great. I think everybody would agree, a really great decision. The other thing we've been doing this year is exploring AVID at the elementary level. So we've had a committee, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that after Carissa talks about the data, and actually Tammy Becker is going to come up and tell us some, but we have been exploring AVID at elementary. So I'm going to hand this over to Carissa Miles. You can introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Carissa Miles. I am the AVID coordinator and teacher at West Middle School. I started the program 5 years ago at West. I've seen it grow from 8th graders, now 7th graders, and it's been a great experience. What you're looking at right before us right now is our enrollment numbers over the years. So in spring 2013, we had 44 students in AVID. To date, as of last week, we have 424 students that AVID is serving here in Lawrence Public Schools. So we've seen a tremendous growth. 2015, we saw a big jump in numbers. Part of that was due to adding 8th grade AVID at all 4 middle schools. And again, this year, we see another big jump, and that's partially due to 7th grade AVID being added. If you look at the graph, you see that high school has started at stabilization, and we like to see that. We actually want, we don't want everyone to be in AVID. That's part of school-wide AVID. That's the purpose of making sure that we have teachers that are trained in using best practices in all of our classrooms. And so high school has started stabilization. Middle school is still growing. So one of the things that we're constantly keeping in the background and considering and thinking about is how, as AVID grows at the middle school, how is that going to impact enrollment at the high school? And will we see that stabilization start to change, or do we have to make some changes, whether it be additional classes or starting to limit some of those students and then using some of the maybe qualifiers for AVID students, like the historically unrepresented students, which traditionally we have not used to accept students into AVID, but that might be something that we have to use on a more regular basis if we continue to grow. The next slide talks about AVID elective in regards to gender. So we, since the beginning, have always had a gender gap. We've always had fewer males than females. We started with 34% males in the elective course. We have seen that grow, so we are experiencing growth. We're putting forth some effort to make sure that we have more and more males every year, and we're starting to kind of see that balance out. Sorry, I'm just going to do it. The other thing that we look at with AVID data is looking at who is in the elective and does our demographics mirror that of our community. And so when we look across, we want to make sure that we do not have, for example, all white students in the class. And so we really try to make a concerted effort to make sure that we are reaching all students, whether they be historically marginalized groups of students or not. And so this is something that we always keep in conversation, especially with all of our equity work that's happening.
It's okay, keep going.
It's frozen. Okay. All right. And so in order to reach success, we tie in academic rigor with college readiness and college persistence. And what we've seen so far is right now at both high schools, 100% of students are enrolled in at least one AP or honors course. This is a requirement for our students at the high schools. Well, there's been a lot of research that shows if you take at least one college class, what that persistence likelihood would be once they go to college. And so we're pretty proud of that. That's something that's definitely a focus. Also, 100% of our students at both high schools have completed 4-year college entrance requirements. And then 91% of our students are persisting into the college or their second year of college, which is above both state and national statistics. So.
And those would be students who graduated from us a year ago. So they'd be 2 years ago, you know what I'm saying? So they're persisting into their second year, which is great news.
Thanks to the board, you guys have provided us with a lovely budget, and a lot of that budget and those funds that come from the board are spent on professional learning. So we send a group of teachers every year to Summer Institute. We also bring regional trainers to the district. We spend a lot of time providing professional development throughout the district in-house. And so as you look at the percent of teachers trained, currently we have 27% of middle school and high school teachers trained in AVID. And they're not trained to be AVID elective teachers, but they go to get really good professional development related to their content area. And we do try to send a variety of different teachers to these trainings so that way they can take the learning about science or ELA or social studies and take it back to their teams and their departments and share that knowledge. We're pretty excited coming up because we are going to be expanding our culturally relevant teaching to about 100 more teachers in the district within the next few months. So it's something that we're really looking forward to.
All right. Another just short video, because if we could bring all of our AVID students here, we would, but since we can't, this will give you a flavor from some students at another building.
As their orchestra teacher, I see the same kids year after year, and this is the first year I've seen 7th grade AVID students, and I can pick out exactly who they are. They're the ones who come up to me after class and literally ask, how did I do today? Well, what can I get better?
AVID, it gives you like a really nice learning atmosphere. Like, you really feel like the people in there and like the teacher like is part of your family, and like you know that like they'll always be there to like help you if you need it.
I was teaching Cornell notes to my students, and we read an article and I modeled for them. I realized that I had a couple kids in my class who were doing a phenomenal job, so I just stopped midway through the work and I said, you've got some classmates who really know what they're doing, would you like to come up and teach this? And I had 2 kids who came up and taught the Cornell notes way better than I did, and they were both AVID kids and their notes were fantastic.
We're all like a family and we all like support each other.
Helps you get organized, you're safe to talk to whoever.
All right, so I have a student who is in AVID. He wasn't a super motivated student at the beginning of the year, kind of did his work sometimes, didn't always finish it, didn't always turn it in. As we realized that his motivator was he was on probation for maybe not being able to take AVID second semester because he could get his grades up. He was so worried about being out of AVID, there was some kind of magic going in there, that every day he would turn in an assignment, he'd come in, run up and say, will you grade it? What's my grade now?
And then come to class and talk. We're safe to talk to people about.
I joined AVID because I thought it would benefit me, and I wanted to learn more about college because it's not that far away.
I interact with students or run into students who are now in high school that I've had in the past, and I know they've been involved in AVID. They have a lot of positive things to say, but what I see the most in them is their own confidence in their abilities academically, and their self-confidence grows because they feel successful.
I like AVID because it helps me get organized in my classes, and then prepares me for college and stuff. Helps me with my binder because it's something
he has issues with his binder.
What I like best is that we're like all the family and like get to learn together and bond, and that we learn so much, and it's interesting and it's new every day.
All right. So we got to hear from some more. Want to move into AVID Elementary. We have a handout for you. We aren't going to get into a lot of exactly what AVID Elementary is. We want to talk to you about the work that we did, but I do want to acknowledge AVID at the elementary level that we've been exploring this year. We have learned there is not an AVID elective class in any way. It is primarily the school-wide component only, and it looks very different at elementary. So in order to learn more, we had a committee of about 16 of us. There were 6 elementary principals, district administration, classroom teachers, and instructional coaches, and we all attended the AVID National Conference together, and we focused on attending sessions on AVID Elementary. We actually made a lot of contacts, met some principals from Park Hill, which we'll be going to visit. They are piloting AVID at Elementary in 3 of their elementary schools. So we were actually supposed to go during the snow day last week, or right after the snow day, and she asked that we wait. So we are gonna attend that. Upon returning from the national conference, we had a debrief session and got some feedback. And what Tammy's gonna talk to us about is potential benefits and potential challenges that group came up with. So I'm gonna hand it over. Oh, and there's a picture from our national conference that I thought you might enjoy and appreciate. On Saturday morning before our session started, these 3 decided to try out the scooters in San Diego. Fortunately, no one was hurt, so. Okay.
Thanks for giving me a few minutes to speak. Like Leah said, I'm Tammy Becker, the principal at Hillcrest.
And I had the opportunity, I was one of the principals that went to the AVID conference in December. And I have to say, and many of you know I'm a longtime educator, 30 years as an administrator, it was one of the very best conferences I've ever attended. And it was just so powerful. And I think that's important for you to hear because I know you've invested a lot of budget into AVID. I've also had the opportunity to listen over the last 5-6 years of the impact that AVID has had on students. And Elias is a former student, and I noticed on the girls' shirts there's other former students. So it's really neat to see those kids realizing what kinds of things they need to put in place to further their careers. And I think that's the big piece of thinking about the benefits of implementing AVID at the elementary level. As Leah said, it's school-wide, so all kids really work to learn the strategies, the organizational strategies, the note-taking, that kind of thing. I think the structure and framework of AVID would provide consistency throughout our schools in the 3 pillars of CI3T, the academic, social, and emotional, and then behavioral. An example of that would be that many of our elementary schools have implemented class meetings this year, but we've taken a lot of different approaches. We're using a variety of materials. And I think through the implementation of AVID, we would have all students getting consistent language when we're teaching topics such as growth mindset. Just that consistency K through 5. There are lots of different strategies that would be taught, again, to all students, and that would be consistently used through the first 6 years of school, which I think would only benefit our secondary programs. In addition, as Leah said, with it being school-wide, it's Tier 1. It is for all kids, and I think that would allow our students to enter middle school with just an even more expanded toolbox of learning strategies. When I was attending the sessions at the national conference, I was in awe by the organizational and work ethic, those can-do attitude components of AVID. That was probably one of my biggest takeaways. And I feel like more and more those are the skills that our kids are coming to school not having, but they have to have in order to be successful. You heard all 4 of these students talk about that. At the conference, in one of the sessions at the conference, I thought about my now 25-year-old son, who would have benefited greatly from note-taking and organizational strategies. It took him a year and a half of college to figure out how to get all of that together. And I think about these kids leaving our high schools now with those skills in place. The AVID professional development is not a one and done. It's a huge commitment, and I think that would be something that we really have to think long and hard about. They hold you to having regular professional development, very focused professional development. They set expectations for the implementation and the progress monitoring that they're sharing today. I think one of the things that would be really key is the KISA goal of relationships. I attended a session, a parent session. They have a really strong parent empowerment piece. And I think as principals and staff, as we're working, as we work to manage our site councils and our PTOs and our PAS groups, I think AVID could provide us with lots of resources to kind of enhance that parent voice. Overall, I think AVID would benefit a lot of the good things that we're already doing in Lawrence. There's some just structures to AVID that I think a lot of our programming would fit into. As you know, there's always challenges to implementing something new, and probably the biggest challenge that you guys will have to think about is budget. I know you're working right now to think about which programming is most critical and impactful for our students, and I think that's an important piece. What impacts our students the greatest? In our debrief session, when we came back from the conference, those participating felt that if the board were to expand AVID Elementary, that it should not be an optional program. If we were to pilot or we move it to Avid Elementary, teachers need to be part of that professional development and that training. And with that, I think with all things, Avid implementation is going to be only as strong as the leadership in the building. And I say that because we have a lot of things on our plate, and we have to balance our collaboration time and our professional learning communities and that kind of thing. And sessions that I went to, those staff shared a lot about Avid was always out in front. What are we doing to bring our programming along? One of the things we heard over and over again is if you don't have dedicated time regularly, you don't implement as well with fidelity. So one of my takeaways was that Avid will only be successful, or it won't be successful if it's partially implemented or watered down. There are definitely very high expectations of implementing Avid. The other thing that we talked about as principals is the need to really think about how, if you guys were to support it, how we would implement, because we have a lot of teachers at elementary and 14 buildings. And we heard from schools that implemented sending, one grade level, and then the next grade level didn't want to go, so they kind of let it go. So that the implementation was kind of haphazard, and they felt like they didn't have all the successes that they felt like they were going to have. One particular school in Colorado Springs talked about restarting the program a couple years after. It was actually 3 years after, and they did it with a building commitment. Those teachers were very invested, and again, the district provided the time for the trainings and those kinds of things. So I think that's important. So I just want to say thank you again for your investment in Avid. Even if this year it stays at secondary, there's huge impacts. It's very obvious. But I hope you'll consider when you're doing your budgeting process in the study that you'll think about what it might look like if we had Avid K-12. Thank you.
Thank you. She did a really nice job of kind of summarizing all the work that has gone into learning about what Avid Elementary would look like. And so I'm going to kind of pull it all together by telling you what our next steps are. And as Tammy mentioned, we really are asking that maybe Avid Elementary be a part of the strategic planning process. We consider that, and that the budget committee also take into consideration what it would look like and what our options are there. So there's that. Overall, we're still just, and I mentioned this last year when I reported to you, increasing support for each site. So I mentioned Barb over here, who was brand new this year, who frankly, without very much support, is just killing it. But we've met like once, right? So really just keep thinking about onboarding new staff as they're coming on. So that's a goal of mine as we look at supporting what's happening. We are going to continue training all of our certified staff in culturally relevant teaching. That's super important, great training. And support coordinators in data collection and then utilizing the data to help make decisions both school-wide and for their Avid elective. So I'm going to not pause, but stop there and allow you to ask questions of any of us that you heard speak, or we're not.
I can go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm wondering about, the numbers for Avid that you, in terms of the students that you've reached and the outcomes you've had have been really impressive. It's been fun to meet them in I meet students in my term here on the board. It's still a relatively small in percentage at the high school level when you think about the total number of high school students that we have. Mm-hmm. And part of the messaging has been that it's not right for every student, that you look at who it's a good fit for and who it isn't. Mm-hmm. So when we look at moving to the elementary level and implementing it, every teacher, that would be their approach, and every student would get that philosophy of Avid. I am thinking about a teacher who perhaps method or approach to teaching doesn't necessarily align with this particular approach. And from the board, we're saying, having listened to Tammy, we're now saying, but yes, now you must. for it to have the fidelity that you mentioned. So I'm wondering how you would address that. It's kind of a critique or a question, an inquiry. And then, so Avid's been around for like 40 years or something along those lines. How long has the Avid at the elementary level been around, and what's the data look like in terms of outcomes for students at the elementary level where there's been implementation of this particular process?
Great questions. I'm going to work backwards. Avid Elementary, and we're all still learning, so I just don't have all that information on the top of my head, and I don't want to mislead you, but I'm aware of it being around for about the last 10 years. It is relatively new. The idea has been because they recognize the benefit of a K-12 system. So to answer, and then the data is, the data that they've collected is on their website in terms of impact and, yeah, is it worth it, does it work kind of thing. To answer then your first question around, I guess the best way I can answer that, and any of my colleagues can certainly help, is that there's nothing about Avid, the Avid system that's like a boxed program, like here's now how you will teach. Instead, particularly Avid Elementary gives common language to things teachers are already doing around organization, around sort of doing school. You know, how do I come to school? And the expectations that they're already creating in their CI3T manuals for PBIS, like positive behavior intervention in sports. It's like that stuff. So there's all that room for autonomy and customization, but there are some things that allow for the common language around what does it look like to be organized as a kindergartner? What does it look like to be organized as a first grader, as a second grader? And so what we're imagining is that if at Avid at Elementary and what their data supports, that you have more students then moving into middle school with those skill sets in place, but not taught in such a way that it takes away from the teacher, more so allowing the opportunity for the common language around school expectations, I think is the best way I could say that.
I think I would just add.
Can you go to the mic so that people at home can hear you?
She's trying not to get up.
I just want to echo what Leah said. I think, you know, when we rolled out our CI3T plan, one of the most positive pieces of that was the language around expectations. Our kids and our parents, they know that language. We teach it every year, we review it every year. It's the same all the way through. And I think Avid would provide the academic piece of that. Again, when you're teaching note-taking, and it blew my mind, they start modeling some of that kind of thing in kindergarten and first. And as elementary kids are leaving 5th grade, we went to a student panel, and I was it was amazing to me how 5th and 6th graders were leaving with some of those skills around note-taking and organization. So it's some of that, to me, it's the language, it's the consistency. I think one of the hardest things for kids in education is when this teacher says it this way, and this teacher does it this way, and in 3rd grade you don't get any of it, and then you kind of are expected to have it in 4th grade. Does that make sense? Some of that language, we're talking the same talk. Is really what it's about. And I think that's what's been so powerful about our CI3T with behavioral expectations. Our data would show you, I mean, just my building alone, the decrease. Kids know what's expected, and we do a lot of reteaching, and I think Avid would provide that.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, I know one of the things that was to bring up for during strategic planning and budgeting to consider it. I know, well, I'm trying to clarify, there are some students that maybe probably could have been considered but are on the wait list, for lack of a better term. How do we justify budgeting and approving elementary level Avid and not providing for those kids that are the wait list?
It's a great question. So we never really want to see more than about 7 to 10% of our whole population in the Avid elective. And as Carissa mentioned as she was showing you the data, at high school we have that stabilization. We will have to turn kids away who want to be an Avid. That's the absolute, I mean, and it frankly should be that way. They are going through an application process. They sit down. Their parents, in a lot of cases, not every school does that, but their parents come in and hear what are the expectations so that no students entering the Avid elective under the misguided assumption that you won't have to do very much work, or because there is a lot associated with it. So we, for many years, didn't have to ever turn kids away. In a lot of cases, we were like doing a lot of recruitment because nobody really knew what it was. So to answer your question, I think the justification is, like with anything, what do we know? If we can be proactive and start much sooner, are we giving that skill set, throughout, to then, I mean, one thing that our ninth grade teachers say, content and Avid elective teachers will tell our 8th grade, is if those kids could just come and they know how to take notes and they have their binders in place, we can take them anywhere. But if they show up and they don't have those pieces in place, they're having to go backwards. And this is 9th grade, and as Tammy said, we're talking about starting at kindergarten, systematically preparing to work through. I hope that answers your question.
So at the elementary level, we want 100% participation, but at the middle school and high school, we want 7 to 10% participation.
In the Avid elective, we also do school-wide for everyone, just like what elementary does. Absolutely. I didn't mean to make that confusing for you.
It's like, whoa.
Thank you so much for taking the time. And if you wouldn't mind just thanking the students one last time, because they're still here and they are, I'm sure, tired. So thank you for being here.
So can I ask Leah, as a follow-up, could you, I hate asking because you do so much, but the data as it relates to elementary, if we're making budgetary decisions about it, I know that'll come to us, but if it could be even, I know that the data is on the Avid page, but is there anything that you can point to that's maybe...
Why don't I see what I can gather?
Yeah.
We can share that with you so we have a little bit more.
Thank you, students.
Before they leave,
leaving. Thank you for coming. We
Elias.
appreciate you coming.
Gentlemen.
I want to thank you, all of our students and our parents also for bringing our students with them. I think everyone's wondering with Elias and Tomoa, why didn't you like each other?
Yeah.
Just kidding. You don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that. But what I will say, I had the opportunity to have lunch with Miss Nitt's class over at Southwest, and I think Caitlin was in there as well. And this was no cameras around. They were their true, authentic selves, and they shared with me many of the benefits that they're receiving from being in Avid, and they praise Miss Nitt as well as, this is only her first year of doing Avid, and you would think that she's been doing it for 11 years. And so I've seen firsthand, even over at Liberty Memorial, I had an opportunity to visit there as well, and students just telling me about how they are now more organized or how they're more successful and how what they're learning in Avid applies or they're actually benefiting, that their other classes are benefiting from it. And so I just want to say publicly, Ms. Nitz and her team, and also our principals that are also making this work, thank you for what you're doing with our Avid students.
Thank you.
I know January just a little bit, and from what I see in her presenting, I know from the first time I met her, she was very shy, so. It's good to see her up here speaking.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so our final report tonight will be on the bond construction management agreement about Lawrence High School with.
There's some folks that are going to trail me in here, but I'll go ahead and get started. Kyle Hayden, Chief Operations Officer. So this has been a long time coming. Just to kind of refresh your memory on this, the master plan process for this started actually 3 years ago. So it was January 2016 that we hired Gould Evans to help us with master planning, primarily for this project, along with the other things with our improvements with our secondary schools. It was a year beyond that, a year and several months before the bond issue actually passed in May of 2017. And then we hired this firm and McCown Gordon and Henderson Engineers to help us with this project. Design started all the way back in August of 2017, but it's been complex and complicated and involved, but we're finally to the point where we're ready to present the bids to you and the project in whole. Some folks that are here today is Whitney Lang with Gould Evans Architects, John Wilkins with Gould Evans Architects, CJ Armstrong over here with Gould Evans, and then Scott Kimsey with McCown Gordon Construction. So I do want to take the opportunity to make sure that I reinforce the fact that this has taken a really strong commitment by a lot of people, and you know, a commitment to really be intentionally engaged, to be respondent to the users, the end users of the school. There's been a design committee that is full of staff, administration, parents that have been there along the way to help guide decisions. There's been a lot of surveys done. There's just been a lot of feedback we tried to gather along the way to come to design goals. And it's been quite comprehensive. And there's also been a commitment really to trying to do more than what we initially intended to do. And hopefully you'll be able to see that in the presentation today, because there is additional scope that we were able to capture. And some of that's just very intentional, because after 2 years beyond a master plan, things change. And so you want to be respondent to those changes and make sure that those are addressed when you have the opportunity like we do right now. So I'm personally looking forward to finally getting started in May and seeing some progress. The construction won't be easy. It'll be taxing on people for sure. This is, Tammy just left here, I think, but this is Hillcrest times 5. So, we're in the midst of students doing, close to $50 million worth of construction over a 2.5-year period. So I'm going to turn this presentation over to the design team, and they're going to go through some of the stuff you've seen already. Some of the images have changed as it's been refined since the last time you saw it about 6 months ago. But then at the end, we'll be able to respond to any questions and hopefully get this thing approved. So I'm going to turn it over to Whitney. Okay.
All righty. Do I? Clicker. Okay. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to work on Lawrence High. On behalf of Gould Evans and McCown Gordon, it's really kind of one of those dream projects for those of us that live in Lawrence and born and raised, and kids go to Lawrence Public Schools. So thank you. It's an exciting day for Lawrence. It's not lost on us what an impact a completed Lawrence High is going to have for our overall community. So we're really excited to present it to you. We were last here, I think it was in June of last year. So what we're going to go through today is a quick refresher on the master plan goals, schedule, which Kyle talked about, overview of the design, touch on some of the building system upgrades, the not as glamorous stuff, but oh so important. Kind of just summarize what the overall scope of the work is. And then Scott's going to come up and talk about how we're going to actually get this thing done. And then Kyle's going to wrap it up with the budgets. So as a refresher, the goals in the master plan were to create 21st century learning environments, accommodate additional student population, safe and secure campus, address student privacy, creating equity across the district, and then strategic MEP and systems upgrades. And we can say with confidence we're accomplishing all those. And as Kyle said, just through really good planning and hard work, we've been able to stretch the dollars even further. So the schedule. So we were hired in the fall of 2017, as Kyle said. We began working right away. It takes a lot to do a project of this size and scale. So we started at the same time as the middle schools in Free State, and it's just taken us in the scope a little longer to get to where we are today. So we are actively working on getting the construction site ready, as Scott can talk about mobilizing. McCown Gordon will pretty much follow the teachers and faculty out of Lawrence High when school is out, and then we'll be on site for 27 months. So it's 3 summers, and 3 summers was really critical in terms of getting this project executed. But I won't read all these, but there's 10 parts of the design that we wanted to touch on today. The first is clear wayfinding. So Lawrence High today is, I think, 12 additions, and that was a comment we heard a lot when we first started talking, is there's not really a there, and it's hard to find your way around, and there's really not a sense of, like, it's a confusing school. And so when Lawrence High is complete, we're gonna have very clear wayfinding. So north in all these images is up, so Louisiana Street is on your right. So the main double corridor that runs along Louisiana Street will stay, and then there'll be another predominant north-south corridor, and then 3 strong east and west. And they are organized down the center. We'll talk about in a little red is the innovation corridor, and then to the left, to the west, the green is the consolidated wellness programs. And then on the right, lining Louisiana Street, are core classrooms. One secure campus. These red triangles represent all, probably not even all of the various doors to Lawrence High. So when all is said and done, it's gonna be much more limited. Now this is gonna be an adjustment for Lawrence High, you know, to not be able to come and go through any door, but we worked really hard to be very strategic about where students come from, where the buses are, where parking is, and to really limit it. So a lot of the other doors now that students may come in will all still be egress doors that people can get out of, but they'll be locked from the exterior. In addition, that connects existing Lawrence High to the annex, so no longer going outside to reach the annex. And then the west courtyard gets fences at the north, up by the kitchen, and at the south, so that when school's in session, that's a secure outdoor area. And then also internally, you see the smaller 3 green boxes, those are interior courtyards. So quite a variety of outdoor spaces, which are all still within the secure confines. So this is a rendering that shows the existing courtyard today, or not a rendering, a plan. We worked with the performing arts to make sure we're designing the steps at riser depth so that it can serve for performing arts. It can serve as just, you know, a day-to-day spot for students to be outdoors. The main office does get some renovations. So the rendering on the left shows when you're in the vestibule today, but some reconfiguration. The receptionist actually moves up to the main wall, and that way can buzz people in, like I'm sure most of you have seen at some of the grade schools. From a classroom standpoint, you know, a challenge in educational design now is how do you balance the desire and the need for day-to-day visibility, so that especially as high school students are moving throughout the school during the day, the teachers have visibility as to what's happening in the hallway. Are students doing what students are supposed to be doing? With, you know, just ensuring that we are providing safe environments for our students. So every classroom has a zone in blue that is outside of class or outside of view. So even our classrooms that we'll show down the innovations corridor that have the most glazing, all of them have a solid room that students and faculty can go in if that were ever necessity. Student privacy. So most of the restrooms at Lawrence High will be all brand new. As Kyle said, this is like a Hillcrest level of renovation. So if any of you saw Hillcrest before or after, sometimes it's hard to know what's new versus what was existing. So the blue boxes are more traditional restroom banks where there's a male and a female restroom in separate rooms. We have designed those so that they are gender ready. So we won't get in all the plumbing specifics, but it's basically we are setting the school district up that if in the future there is desire to have more gender neutral restrooms, those could fairly easily be converted by Kyle's staff. And then the red boxes are restrooms that will be on day one gender neutral restrooms. So those are private stalls, floor to ceiling, for students. And then you can see some little red boxes in the middle, but in the locker room remodels, every single locker room has a private changing room or two, and then in addition, there are private shower rooms, so for students or faculty that may want that extra level of privacy. Student Support and Success Center, you know, a lot of the really great resources at Lawrence High are just kind of scattered around right now in nooks and crannies where offices could be found. So the completion of Lawrence High, the existing admin office stays pretty much as it is, except for some differences of people that move. And then to the right of it, it might be a little disorienting, but it's just down auditoriums at the top. Down is what we're calling the Student Success Center. And in that space is where we are consolidating all the counselors, all the social workers, and all the assistant principals. So it becomes one spot for students. And then working with the school was actually, even the arrangement of them was intentional, that counselors tend to kind of have more traffic in and out. And as you kind of work your way through, maybe some of the conversations can warrant, you know, an additional layer of privacy. So it was strategically set up so that the social workers were tucked back. As we get into some of the architectural moves, when you enter Lawrence High in 2021, it's not going to look at all like the arrival today, but we've combined the dining with the commons and the library, and that's allowing these two spaces to really take advantage of each other so that the library center, when lunch isn't happening, right, they can overflow into the dining, and similar, there's overflow dining out into the library during that time of the day. So the library will be a mix of a traditional library, so there's stacks, there's still a circulation desk, maybe calling it a Genius Bar now, but then there's additional amenities. There's an IT help window. There are group collaboration rooms. A good chunk of the library at Lawrence High will actually be unsecured. So after hours, there was a part that will be secured, and that was librarian at Lawrence High was kind of excited about just having kind of those resources out and visible. So fall of 2021, when you arrive in the front door of Lawrence High, where you're standing now would be looking at the rotunda today. So looking straight ahead is a stair that will connect up to level 2. This is probably one of those pieces that wasn't originally assumed in the BOM, but as we got into the project, became really important to Lawrence High because a lot of the shared amenities are on the first floor, but a lot of the classroom stock is on the second floor. So to connect those in a more meaningful way. Behind you in this picture is the cafeteria, which does get fully renovated, more finishes. And then to the right, we'll talk in a bit about the innovation district. So as you walk in the space a little more and kind of turn north, you can see where the IT or Genius Bar is, so where Charlotte's desk will be. And then you can see a lower one-story volume, which will have traditional stacks and quiet study areas as well. The stairs are intentionally designed actually as a split. So on the right is more of your kind of day-to-day movement circulation. And then what you see on the left is actually designed at deeper treads. So it's intended to be more of a gathering spot where students can sit with their devices and work. The innovation corridor, which I've touched on a couple times, is we think just going to be a really incredible aspect of Lawrence High when it's completed. You know, when you look at the research of what current employers are looking for, a lot of the skills that they're looking for are creativity, ability to work in groups, presentation skills, and a lot of those skills that you hone in more the CTE or fine arts classes. And today at Lawrence High, a lot of those are also just kind of stuck in nooks and crannies throughout the school and maybe don't have as much synergy with each other as those teachers would like to have. So in the remodel, we've been able to pull all of those programs together into a singular part of the building called the Innovations Corridor, which is strategically located bridging the health and wellness, and then the core classrooms. So today, you know, your view down to the fine arts and drawing and painting at Lawrence High. On the right is an enlargement, and the blue arrows are trying to show where the renderings are taking place, because I know with this big of a renovation, it can be disorienting to place yourself. So the first image we're going to see is if you were standing, it's where the lower blue arrow is. So you're standing in the innovations corridor looking south. And so to the left, you see the courtyard. And that's actually a courtyard that exists today. It's the southernmost of them. We add a link to the south side of it, but that's in a courtyard today. And then the innovations classrooms along the right. You can see that solid red bar. That's what we talked about, even in our classrooms where we have those solid rooms where students and faculty can go. Also along the innovations corridor is artwork display. So to be able to really celebrate all the great work that's happening out of those classrooms. In the innovations corridor, so the upper blue arrow or triangle, if you look to the right, you're looking towards the double stair, right, that's existing on Lawrence High. And you'll see there's two new spaces to Lawrence High. One's called a project center, and so the intent for that is as there's more 3D printers and kind of special technology, there's a shared space where those can be securely located. And then the Learning Commons, which is a larger, it's sized for probably 2 classrooms. So if classes are doing a project together or they're bringing a lecture in, staff meetings, et cetera. And then the classroom corridors. So when we talk about equity, when we did the master plan, 29% of Lawrence High classrooms met the district's ideal size. So while in plan it may look like a lot of the corridors staying the same, it's not at all. And classrooms are still going where classrooms are, but it's going to be a complete demolition and redo. One of the opportunities is by removing lockers. So when we did surveys with the students, the amount of students who academic lockers, right? We're not athletic lockers, certainly still have a high use. So reclaiming that space for breakout, group work, space down the hallways. And then that red bar is a breakout room. So a space, again, that has a flat screen, like 4 to 6 students can be in there working on a project. And then performing arts. You know, I think the performing arts is a part of this project that we're all really excited about. You know, going into the master plan, classrooms was really the priority, and we just at the time weren't quite sure. We knew there was needs and how much we'd be able to do to performing arts, which is such a critical part of the culture of Lawrence High. So throughout the project, the work we've been able to do, there'll be finished upgrades throughout, new lighting throughout. We've been working with the band instructors to really deal with a lot of storage issues they're having. New dedicated storage for robes for the choir. And then in the auditorium, ventilation in the scene shop, the dressing rooms get completely demolished and redone. They need it. Replacement of auditorium house lighting. And then right now, there's the catwalk system is not really ideal at Lawrence High. So we're going to be coming in with rigged theatrical lighting system. So there'll be one over the stage that lowers and then one over the house that lowers so that they have access to, lighting. And then some general electrical upgrades that need to happen throughout that space. And then wellness and athletics. So they, again, are on the west side of the innovations corridor. A lot of those existing spaces stay where they are right today, but we're moving the PE classrooms over there, the 2 PE classrooms. The locker rooms get completely redone. So upon completion, there'll be male and female PE and athletic lockers. As I said, each will have private changing rooms in them. Showers are private, so no longer kind of the communal showers. combined weight and cardio room and training room. And then we have located the culinary or FACS classroom, so it falls within that wellness corridor as well. And then a coach's suite, so an open office suite for the coaches who are in season at that time. And then outdoor learning. So in that one of the diagrams we showed previously, there was the 3 courtyards down the middle as well as the western courtyard. So we've worked quite a bit with Kyle and other folks in facilities to make sure that it's landscaped and outfitted in a way with Tony that they are able to maintain it. And then building system upgrades. So throughout the school, all new LED lighting, which will improve controllability and is infinitely more energy efficient. A new highly efficient mechanical system that's controllable by room, right? Roof leaks and air quality or air temperature are probably the complaints that Kyle and Tony deal with the most. Quite a bit of roofing repair and patching at Lawrence High. And then, again, been working pretty hard with the district to ensure that the site is being left in a way that they can maintain with their current resources. So what does this mean for overall scope of work? All of Lawrence High is being touched. So this diagram shows the light red or pink is light renovation. So those are spaces that are either getting mainly finish upgrades, or, for instance, the existing science labs that are staying had some improvements that they needed to have done in them, but largely will remain the same. The middle tone red means a major renovation. So those are spaces that will not look really much at all like they look right now. And then the red are the couple small additions that are tying all of this together. And then I put an asterisk on the scope that really we've been able to accomplish above what was originally in the master plan. And you'll see a lot of that is finished upgrades, for example, over in the natatorium, in the auxiliary gym, in those locker rooms. New windows on the annex. Well, how are we going to get all this built? Scott has figured out for us.
Yeah, so as Gould Evans has been working on what this project is going to look like when it's all said and done, right alongside them, one of the things we've been working on is how do we schedule and construct and phase this project, and really worked as hard as we could to make it as unobtrusive to the residents of the school as possible. Some of the things that we really focused on were separation, trying to make sure that the students and the faculty all remain safe and that we're separated from the construction traffic as best we possibly can, and trying to focus on moving sensitive programs just once. So spaces that aren't just going in traditional classrooms or standard type classrooms, moving those just once because they're very costly to move. Spaces like science and CTE, those sorts of spaces that some of the arts areas that would be relocated. Another thing that we worked on was trying to work in larger contiguous blocks. And this is in an effort to reduce phasing and cost associated with phasing, such as temporary classrooms, that sort of stuff. And I think we're really proud to report that, we started out with a schedule that was in excess of 30 months through very detailed planning and working with the design team and the school. We've been able to squeeze that down to a schedule that consists of about 27 months. Everything would be complete in the summer of 2021, starting in June of this year. And it'll be just 7 phases, which I think is about 20 phases less than what we recently renovated the high school down the highway. And so a lot less complicated for the students. The traffic flows won't be changing on a regular basis. It'll be much more unobtrusive. So with that, that's really what we accomplished from a phasing perspective. Wrong way. So I think the big picture, as has been mentioned a couple times, we'll start here working in May of this year. mobilizing. And right as the teachers and the students are walking out the door, we'll be walking in to begin construction, starting where the current CTE resides, as well as renovations to the existing annex and link that will be connecting back to the existing facility. At the end of this summer, the large orange block that you see on the screen there, that will be complete, and a significant portion of the school will be renovated and ready for use next year. And then from there on, we're really just begin to march north throughout the remainder of the building until we're complete in for the fall semester of 2021.
So last piece here is just the budget, and we were able to hit our budget targets and stay within what we are basically our all-in money for this project. We carried enough contingencies on the side to help us with gaining the additional scope and covering that. I will say the team worked extremely hard over the course of the last month, in particular once bids were let to make that happen. And so appreciate all their efforts and working with our trade partners to get that done. But this is what we're asking for the board to approve. The $46,191,493 is the final GMP. It looks different on the actual enclosure because it's also improving all of the work they've already done with McCown Gordon too. So it's an addition to that to get us to that, whatever it's $70-some million. But we still are holding $1 million of owner contingency that helps us along the way for the unforeseens, which there will be those. There'll be things that'll come up that we'll look at and we'll go, in fact, I already had one today that came in and based on a fire marshal walkthrough, they said, hey, you probably should do that. It don't have to, but probably should means probably should because next year we may get cited for it. So, so things like that will occur, especially when you're going in and doing major renovations and tearing things completely out. So that's the outlook for right now, though. So anything else from you guys? Questions?
Well, it looks fantastic. It's exciting. It's going to be really cool when it's done. I can't wait to see it. My son was just leaving Cordley as it got renovated, and then he's going to be just leaving Lawrence High as it starts to get renovated. So, but his little sister will maybe get some of it. So, any questions for the team?
I just want to say I'm kind of sad that I'm graduating.
Yeah.
I don't get to see this, but I guess it'll be cool to know that I'm the last class in the old school. But there's a lot of issues that are currently at Lawrence High, and I feel like this plan has very comprehensively covered almost all of the ones I can imagine. So you guys have done a really excellent job from a student's perspective.
Thank you, Gary.
Any other comments or questions?
I definitely want to also echo and thank the team. I think Shannon's coming in to definitely thank the team for their work, and most importantly, thank this community for approving this bond a couple of years back. When I first visited Lawrence High, probably back in March or April, and a student was taking me through the building, we would go outside and come in another building, go outside and come in another building, and I'm thinking of student safety, and it's like, how are we doing this? But this definitely addresses that issue, but most importantly, I think it gives us a space over there that's conducive to 21st century learning, and I'm really excited about making some stairs go up a ceiling that's not even there right now. So definitely thank you to the team and Cal and your team for bringing this to the board.
Shannon, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to offer that I'd like to make the motion when you're ready, and to say that I'm just so excited that we've reached this point. As a district, we've been on this journey now for close to 9 years, actually, going back to when we started planning for our 2013 bond issue, and it's very gratifying to see the progress that we've made over the years through the hard work of the board and our staff and our partners, and I'm just so impressed with the plan that Gould Evans and McCown Gordon have put together in partnership with the district for this building. So when you're ready, I'll make the motion.
I think we're ready.
Okay. I move the Board of Education approve the amended bond construction management agreement with McCown Gordon Construction to include the Lawrence High School bond project for a total GMP in the amount of $78,169,819 to be paid from the 2017 bond project fund.
Second.
Ingram,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Beeson,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Fincher,
Yes.
Gordon Ross.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Excellent. All right, thank you again.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Yes.
Okay, I believe that concludes our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.